Rajesh Srivastava ji is here with us. He completed his engineering at IIT Kanpur. I am Bangalore.
But guess what? When I was in my third year, I realized I would be a bad engineer. So instead of continuing with my mistake, I decided to actually shift gear. After completing IIT, I decided to do management and I got into IIM Bangalore.
So when you're talking about re-energizing a category or jumping the curve with a new category, how do we develop this process of thinking?
This is called critical thinking. What is critical thinking?
A new category that has been created, something that we see or use around us on a regular basis.
This is the example that I wish to share. Till 2007, Nokia was the dominant communication device and it dominated the market. It had over 60% share and 300 billion plus market cap. What did Steve Jobs do? Steve Jobs realized in his own way that he cannot improve Nokia in a manner that it can become a smartphone. So instead of improving Nokia, what did he do?
So how do you look at personal branding, or what can a working professional or a student do in order to enhance it in terms of using it for their career?
During the course of my career, I've created many brands which touch your life, and one lesson I learned was that if you can create brands which touch your life, then why can't I apply the same principle to me as a person and create a personal brand for myself? If you want to transform into a brand, and there are certain things that you've got to keep in mind which are associated with the finest brands. And what are some of these things?
Hello everyone, thank you so much sir firstly to join us.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So Rajesh Srivastava ji is here with us. So he's a corporate veteran, an educator, best-selling author, quite a bit. So what am I missing? Walk us through your journey and the decisions you took. How have you reached here?
Thank you, Aswini, for inviting me. And friends, I did my engineering from IIT Kanpur, but guess what? When I was in my third year, I realized I would be a bad engineer. So instead of continuing with my mistake, I decided to actually shift gear. After completing IIT, I decided to do management and I got into IIM Bangalore. And then after graduating from there, I got into an industry which is unlike me, the alcoholic beverages industry, where I spent almost 16 years and created some of the finest brands. I hope as students you don't have it, but I am sure you heard about it. My double signature. I had the privilege of giving that name to that brand. You may have heard of this tagline. I'll just say 4 words, and then I would expect you to know the remaining. Then I would realize and feel happy that I deserve to be in front of you. खूब जमेगा रंग. You know what the balance is? जब मिल बैठेंगे 3 यार, आप, मैं और, right? And then if you watch IPL, then RCB logo, the original RC logo, that was strategy was mine in the year 2000, right? So that RC logo the strategy was given by me. And then of course in the year 2002, I was invited by Raymond to join J.K. Helen Curtis as the president of the company to re-energize the company. In that role, I had the privilege of re-energizing the deodorant category, which is an integral part of your life, which we'll be talking during the course of our conversation. And then around 2008, I decided to quit corporate to give back to the society what I had learned. And then I took to teaching. So I taught at IIM Indore for almost 7 years, offering electives like brand management, retail management, integrated marketing communication, and so on. I was also the COO of SP Jain School of Global Management, Mumbai, Singapore, Dubai, Sydney. And then I had the privilege of doing corporate workshops for Siemens, Mercedes-Benz, Reliance, and many other companies. And then lastly, Penguin invited me to write books. So I had the privilege of writing 2 books, The New Rules of Business and 10 New Life-Changing Skills. Both have become national bestseller. And I think that's the reason why Aswini invited me to have a conversation with you. So that's what I am.
Thank you so much, sir, for being here, and especially given the subjects you teach is something that I have not studied and learned. And I feel it's very important to have perspectives across subjects, to have an understanding across domains, because there's a lot of interrelationships when we're talking about different domains and different subjects. So having that understanding. So let's dive deep into it. So when we were speaking earlier before the session, so we were discussing about the deodorant category and how you re-energized it. And I have very little understanding in terms of when it comes to branding and everything. And you've understood that in our conversation. So just walk us through, how did it happen? How did you re-energize the category? What do we mean by re-energizing the category? How did that thought come to you? So just everything about it.
Well, actually, it's not as complicated as you make it out to be. Re-energizing basically means that the deodorant category, when I entered the FMCG as the president of JK Helen Curtis, was 66 crores, was less than 100 crores. Okay. Today, it is more than 10,000 crores and growing. There is no retail shop in this country which can actually run unless they have a deodorant in their shop. So from 66 crore to 10,000 is basically re-energizing, putting more energy into it so that it grows by leaps and bounds, right? And it becomes a revenue earner for retail shop owners, and it becomes a source of pride for the users. So that is re-energizing. And the question is, how did this segment get re-energized? This is what I would like to share with you. Friends, I want you to know an important lesson. In adversity lies opportunities. But the problem with most of us is the moment we see adversities, problems, we just run away. Don't ever do that. Just listen to this. I joined JK Helen Curtis as the president. In the first week itself, I called my production person and I told him, listen, from the godown, give me a list of all non-moving stocks of inventory lying in the godown in decreasing order. So on top should be that brand which is maximum quantity and has not moved for the maximum time, and go in that decreasing order. So my production person looked at me and says, yes sir. And within 5 minutes he came and gave me a computer sheet. As I looked at that computer sheet, on top was deodorant, 60,000 cans not moved for almost say 9 months. So I looked at him and I asked him, why has 60,000 cans not moved for 9 months? Why did you produce it? So the production person looked at me, the president of the company, and he says to me, he says, sir, I am in production. I am supposed to produce, manufacture deodorant. It's not my job to tell you why it hasn't moved. And you know what? That is precisely the reason why the company has brought you to find out why it hasn't moved. When he said this to me, I had anger rising inside me. It was my first week in the company, and I quickly realized that if I lost my temper, this production person would go out and tell rest of the team members, ये जो नया साहब आया है ना, इसको थोड़ा सा आप चिढ़ा दो और फिर आप fireworks देखो. So what did I do? I just kept quiet and I told them, can you get me the deodorant from this stock which is not moved? He went to his cubicle and came back and he gave me. I took the deodorant, I used it, and I looked at him and I said, even I won't use it. And the moment I said I won't use it, he burst into laughter and I burst into laughter. But behind that laughter, I started thinking, and it got me thinking, why can't I use this deodorant? And when I started doing background work, I realized the following. Deodorant as a category is not meant for our country. It is meant for cold countries like Russia and France, where it is so cold that people, normally young people, don't have bath because it's cold. So what do? They use deodorant as a substitute for bath. Now, if you are not going to have bath, your body will have an odor. Odor is bad smelling. So in deodorant, you will have to put those fragrance which will actually overpower that bad odor. Loha lohe ko kaatta hai. So deodorant by definition had very strong negative odor to actually fight and overpower the negative odor. And that same concept was brought into India. So the fragrance was not very, very palatable. Then I looked into my country. And what did I discover? In this country, even when I was young, I was young once, right? from that time till today, there is no Indian household, right, where the mother will give a breakfast unless the child has had a bath. Even if you negotiate with your mother, ki, Mom, please give me breakfast, she will never give you lunch till you have had a bath. So bathing was never a problem in this country. So if the problem does not exist, then how can you have a product to solve a problem which does not exist? And that is why I arrived at that one answer. Why was the deodorant not moving in its current shape, form and structure? And this got me thinking, now what? Then I looked at all the data that is available in public domain. What's the first data? 65% of Indians, which means all of us, not me now, 65% of Indians are below the age of 25. And people of opposite gender want to come closer. And what drives them apart? Body odor. This was one insight that I had. The second insight I had was that some of the biggest brands in this country had made and actually got dominant market share based on one line. A toothpaste brand which said, if you want to avoid bad breath and tooth decay, please use me. And it had the largest market share. So the moment you remove odor or something that is bad smelling, you can win market share. Now I put these two things together and I converted the negative into positive. Why talk of bad breath? Why not talk of something which is mood enhancing? And then the moment I reframe, convert a negative into positive instead of bad breath, let's talk of something that can enhance mood. The next question was, what enhances mood of people? And the answer was very obvious. Fragrance. Why is fragrance used? It is used to enhance mood because of that wonderful, notes that you get. And then, through a process, what I said was, instead of deodorant, I will not sell deodorant, I will sell perfume. So we removed the medicated fragrance that was used and put fine fragrance into it. And once we put fine fragrance into it, then what was the proposition? The proposition was very simple. The advertising agency, when we went to them and said that we have removed the medicated fragrance and put in fine fragrance, so please create a communication program which will help people buy. What do you think the advertising agency said? They said, please buy this brand because it has authentic French fragrance. And we had used French fragrance. But my perspective was that you should never advertise a feature. Fragrance is a feature. People don't buy feature. What they buy is benefit. And what is the benefit when I put fragrance? That when young people come together, because the fragrance is good, they will stay closer. So what was the advertising that we picked up? Come closer. So the bottom line was, deodorant was used as a deodorant. Instead of that, what I said is, no to deodorant, yes to fragrance, yes to perfume. Because of that, the deodorant category has seen unprecedented growth. And almost there is no brand which can today sell unless it says fragrance. Now that is what is called re-energizing a category. And friends, what do you have to do? You don't have to do too much market research. You don't have to get experts to do it. All the problems that you encounter as a business professional, the solution lies within you. Provided you actually feel the problem and become the patient yourself and solve the problem for yourself, right? And that is when you create winning brands.
Quite insightful, and I did not know all these connections and everything, so it's very, very interesting. And especially when you're seeing the story, because even when we're doing valuations and when we're trying to make projections and all, we need to understand how the company is moving, where the company is moving. When we're looking at con calls, going through con calls and all for the companies and all, we need to understand what kind of decisions they are taking. For example, the stockpiling, the inventory levels going up, what is working, what is not working in terms of making sales projections, etc. It becomes very, very important for us to go through it. So it's quite insightful and something relatively different from what I read generally. Moving forward, again, before the conversation, we were discussing something which is closely aligned to the red strategy and the blue strategy, wherein most of the people are fighting within the red ocean, basically, and there's a bloodbath where it comes from. And instead of that, one looks at creating a new category of sorts. So you went on creating a new category in the gin segment. Again, I don't understand much in the alcohol space, and as you rightly pointed out, I hope the students don't as well. Um, um, anyway, so how did that happen? Creating a new category in the gin segment.
Actually, it happened in your city,
Kolkata.
called Calcutta, and now
Right.
called Kolkata.
Right.
So I used to work for United Spirits.
Okay.
And United Spirits is a company called Phipson and Company. So the brand that this company had was called Blue Ribbon Gin.
Okay.
Blue Ribbon Gin that time, and I hope even today, had the dominant market share of the gin market. So in 90s, when I used to handle the brand from Calcutta, then it had almost 60% plus market share. But what was the problem? The problem was very simple. Gin constituted only 2% of the alcoholic beverages market. In contrast, whiskey contributed 65% to the segment.
Okay.
And the second problem was...
I don't know the difference between whiskey and gin, but let's carry on.
Yes. So these are different categories.
Right.
So whiskey was over 65% of the alcoholic beverages market, which means it had a dominant share.
Right.
And gin, as I mentioned earlier, just had 2% market share. But this was just the starting point of a problem. What was the bigger problem? The bigger problem was gin had many negatives associated with it back in 90s.
Okay.
Which actually ensured that the growth rate of gin segment was very, very poor, in single digit. And what was the problem? The problem was very simple. It was identified as a lady's drink.
Okay.
And if that was not worse, there was a rumor that it causes impotency. So not only was it a lady's drink, but it causes impotency. So this made sure that men would probably shun gin.
Okay.
As a result, the gin segment was not growing. And this is not the end of the problem. The third problem is that if you take, for example, international brands like, say, Johnnie Walker, Black Label, and Gordon's Gin, which are equivalent brands in terms of image.
Okay.
Johnnie Walker Black Label price and the Gordon's Gin price at duty free, the price difference is huge. Johnnie Walker is priced here, Gordon's Gin is priced here.
Okay.
That is the price. But the cost is not so much. The cost difference is there, but it is not as much as the price difference.
Alright.
So what was the problem that the gin segment was facing? The first was that it was not growing rapidly. And the reason was, as I explained, it was perceived to be a lady's drink with a negativity associated with it. Second, it could not command a price premium.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the challenge before us? The first challenge is to expand the gin market from 2% and make it larger so that the market expands. A. B. Make sure that you are able to command a price premium.
Mm-hmm.
Now with these two challenges in front of us, what did we do? The first question that we did was, we went and asked the whiskey drinkers, what will make you drink gin? Because in India, out of 100 drinkers, 65 drink whiskey. So if we can get even a small number of whiskey drinkers to drink gin, I think we could grow the market. So when we went and asked the whiskey drinkers, please tell us what will make you drink gin? They looked at us and said, see whiskey, how convenient it is. You take a glass, you take a whiskey bottle, pour it, put water or soda to taste, sip it. Over. Now you take your gin, pour gin. And as an aside, 76% of the time, gin is had with lime juice cordial. So what did this person say? You take a gin, then you take lime juice cordial, put it, then you put water or soda according to your taste, then you sip it. Sometimes gin is more, sometimes lime juice cordial is more. So you keep on adjusting. And by the time you get the perfect drink or mix of gin and lime, the desire to have it has evaporated. So the whiskey drinker said, give me the convenience of whiskey and maybe I'll try and have what you are going to present. Then we move over to the gin drinkers and we ask them, friends, tell us what will make you drink more. Guess what they said? As I mentioned, 76% of the time, gin is had with lime juice cordial. Keeping this in the background, what did the gin drinkers tell us? He says, sir, it's afternoon, it's warm, it's hot, and we want to drink lime juice cordial. And remember, friends, I'm talking of 1990s, when bar at home did not exist. So where was the lime juice cordial bottle kept? In the kitchen with the homemaker. That time she was called housewife. So this person looks at us and says, it's hot, it's warm, and we want to have a gin. So the person says, I get the gin bottle and I ask my wife to get the lime juice cordial. And she gives 3 responses. First response, the kids have made sharbat out of it, it's over. Second, it is really over. And third, last time you used it, you did not close the cap properly, now it has got fungus. So I cannot give it to you, it is bad. Now either case, I don't get a lime juice cordial. And here I want to drink and I can't drink. So make sure that lime juice cordial never gets over. Now, when we took this whiskey drinkers requirement of convenience and the gin drinkers requirement of making sure that lime juice cordial never gets over, we came out with a concept which said, in gin, why can't we add metaphorically lime juice cordial so that lime juice cordial never gets over? And once it is mixed, you just pour it in a glass, put water and soda, and you have it. But what did we have to do? We had to make sure that gin and lime were pre-mixed to perfection. And that's how Blue Ribbon Do It was launched, and it created a new category which was called pre-mixed gin. This was launched in the 90s. And that is how a new category was born in the alcoholic beverages market and more specifically in the gin market.
So, anything that a new category that has been created, something that we see or use around us on a regular basis?
This is the example that I wish to share with you. Till 2007, Nokia was the dominant communication device and it dominated the market. It had over 60% share and 300 billion plus market cap. What did Steve Jobs do? Steve Jobs realized in his own way that he cannot improve Nokia in a manner that it can become a smartphone. So instead of improving Nokia, what did he do? He jumped the curve and created a new category which was called the smartphone. Right? So here's an example of how Steve Jobs created a new category. And here, Aswini, what I wish to share with you is, which is called jumping the curve. So what did I do? The gin market was going. Instead of improving the gin market, I jumped the curve and started a pre-mix category.
Right.
We'll go back to the deodorant example. Everybody was selling deodorant. Right. I jumped the curve and I said, no to deo, yes to perfume.
Right.
This is a common way in which you actually change the rules of the business, and if you change the rules on a determinant benefits which customer want, competition is not giving and you give, then the competition starts following, which is what has happened in the case of smartphone.
Right.
As Apple has moved ahead, everybody is following Apple.
So when we're talking about re-energizing a category or jumping the curve with a new category, how do we develop this process of thinking, this kind of thinking?
So Ashwini, this is called critical thinking.
Right.
What is critical thinking? It is actually challenging the existing tradition, assumption and norms.
Mm-hmm.
The moment you challenge the existing tradition, assumptions and norms, that is when you start the process of jumping the curve or reimagining a category.
Out of the box thinking?
Well, out of the box thinking is just a solution.
Okay.
But the first process that you have to do is take any industry that you are in and challenge the current assumption, tradition and norms. So if you take deodorant, what did I do? I challenge the assumption, the tradition and the norms, and then reimagined it as perfume. What did Steve Jobs do? He took the existing assumption, tradition and norms of communication device which was personified by Nokia, and he challenged those assumptions to come out with a smartphone. So every single person does it. So can I give you another example to discuss?
Please.
Elon Musk. Why is he on and off the world's richest person? And why is he arguably one of the most admired persons? The reason is he is an excellent critical thinker. Now, what did he do? A very simple thing. Before him, all automobile companies believe that if a car moved, it will pollute.
Right.
But what did Elon Musk do? He challenged this assumption, tradition, and norm that if an automobile moved, and he said, automobiles will move, but it will not pollute because I am going to offer you a clean transportation. So what did he do? The concept is called value migration. What is value migration? All the existing automobile companies were here. They offered us movement from A to B in probably the safest and the cheapest way. But the outcome was that the planet was becoming more and more unsustainable. But what did Elon Musk do? He moved here. He moved from here to here. And he says, I will make automobiles, but it will not pollute. So I will give you clean transportation. And the moment he gave clean transportation in the form of Tesla, Tesla became the world's most valuable automobile company, right? So if you want to become Elon Musk and you want to actually create the most valuable company in your industry, please become an excellent critical thinker. It's just not Elon Musk, it's just not Steve Jobs. You can take any industrialist down the ages from Henry Ford to Warren Buffett to in India, Mr. Mukesh Ambani. All of these people are excellent critical thinkers.
I've started enjoying Elon Musk, especially after he got Twitter. Started enjoying his tweets and everything. So, with the social media that we're using, with all the students, working professionals being on LinkedIn and all the social media platforms, so personal branding also seems to be very important today. And also, when you look at the startup founders pushing their personal brand or using their personal brand. So, how do you look at personal branding, or what can a working professional or a student do in order to enhance it in terms of using it for their career?
Well, Ashwini, I can only say this. During the course of my career, I've created many brands which touch your life. Some of these brands I have mentioned during our conversation. And one lesson I learned was that if you can create brands which touch your life, then why can't I apply the same principle to me as a person and create a personal brand for myself? And when I focus or you focus on creating yourself or transforming yourself into a brand, that's called personal branding. How do you become a brand? If you want to transform into a brand, then there are certain things that you've got to keep in mind which are associated with the finest brands. And what are some of these things? I'll just mention 3 because of paucity of time. The brands that you love, you trust them. Second, the brands that you love has certain unique differentiator which you can only find in that brand. Right? And therefore you go to them. And on that dimension, your brand puts other competitors to shame. And what is the third thing? Reputation. So can I just take all these 3 things and apply it to myself with the firm belief that if I can apply it to myself and create trust, a unique differentiator and reputation, then you too can. Let's start with the first, trust. Now, there is a wonderful model that is presented by Harvard Business School. What is that model? On the x-axis is competency, and on the y-axis is warmth or being a nice person. Now just take myself. When I introduced myself, I shared with you that I did my education from IIT, IIM, I've created some of these brands, I have re-energized a category. So what did I actually project to you in a non-threatening manner or in a non-show-off manner? That I am competent. The second thing, what did I do? The way I spoke to you, the way I answered questions with please, may I, thank you, softly, I would have come across to you as a nice person. So scoring higher on warmth. Now, according to this business model presented in our business review, if I score high on competency and high on warmth, which means you consider me high on competency and I'm a nice person, then you tend to admire me. And if we engage in a conversation in whichever way over a period of time, or you engage with me at different forums, and you find that I continue to score higher competency and continue as a nice person, then that admiration will change to respect, and over a period of time, it will turn to trust. And the moment you start trusting me, you will follow me to the end of the world. So that is how I have built trust among the people with whom I have engaged. The second principle is unique differentiator. You should stand for one thing. Like for example, if I say McDonald's, what comes to your mind? Fast food. If I say Levi's, jeans. So the world's best brands stand for one thing, and on that dimension they put others to shame. What did I discover about myself? I discovered that the education system in my country through which I have been, they basically focus on the left side of the brain, which means they focus on rational thinking, on logic, on mathematical abilities, etc. And everybody's left brain is sharpened. So if everybody's left brain is sharpened and they are exposed to certain principles, certain frameworks, then given a problem, everyone uses that. And therefore, the solution that comes out is the same. And although that solution is unique, but if everybody comes out with that same solution, it becomes a commodity solution and it is of no use. Having realized this, what did I do? I was sharp in left brain, but I started focusing on my right brain. And what is right brain? It is about intuition, judgment, creativity, innovation, critical thinking, storytelling, influencing people over whom I have no control, and entrepreneurial spirit, or framing the right question. And the moment I sharpened my right brain, what happened? I became more creative, I became more innovative, I became better at solving problems, I displayed more entrepreneurial spirit. As a result, when I worked with United Spirits, I was considered the most creative person. And that became my differentiator. Right? So the second thing that you have to follow is understand what you are good at, and what you are good at, sharpen it to that level that you put others to shame on that dimension. And the third is reputation. So let me take you back to the time when I taught brand management course at IIM Indore. The course became very popular, so much so that when I had started teaching the course in 2008, there were roughly about 40 to 50 students. In the next 2 years, 210 students signed up for my course. There were many students who were specializing in, let's say, finance or any other supply chain. They would just come and say, "Sir, we don't want a credit, but we would just want to sit in your class to just hear you take the course." And why did so many people sign up? And people just wanting to sit in my class because of reputation. The word had spread that Rajesh sir's class is very pragmatic. He teaches from his experience. He gives you real world example, and his content is bleeding edge. Now, trust, unique differentiator on which you put others to shame on that chosen dimension, reputation. These three things and a host of other things has helped me transform into a brand.
So basically, when we're talking about personal brand, it is not just what you're going to be posting on social media or LinkedIn or the number of followers. It's basically wherein you can gain trust, wherein if, say, for example, a work or a task or an assignment or a client is allocated to you, there is trust, you're going to be executing it. There is a differentiation where only you can execute it as well as probably nobody else would be able to, where you can handle multiple things, you can execute projects flawlessly. You will probably not come up with too many questions or too many issues, but you'll get the work done. And there's a certain amount of trust in terms of ethics, in terms of your words. So if you're giving a commitment, we know that it is going to be taken care of. So that brand is not just what you look at on a social media platform. It is also about how bankable you are, how trustworthy you are, what is your reputation, which carries around in circles in the corporate space as well, in the business space as well. So that is what we're looking at in terms of personal branding.
But these are just 3 elements.
Right.
There are 10 elements that go to make a personal brand.
Okay. Interesting. An advice to a working professional?
With patience, even a snail can reach Jerusalem. So be patient. There's time on your side. Why the hurry? And all good things take time.
A motto that you live by.